All right, little cleanup item real quick. Hey, just wanted to remind you guys to text OTB to 602-560-7027. That'll just kind of keep you up to date with any interviews, releases of the podcast, and would love to just be able to connect with you via text.
So fancy.
So fancy.
So fancy.
So fancy.
You so fancy. We're like getting so official.
I know, so official.
I know. I dig it.
All right.
All right.
All right.
So,
real estate story. Let's see.
Real estate story.
Real estate story.
OTB moment.
Don't you have any real estate stories?
I always do, but you never ask. So I just,
I'm asking now. Give me a real estate story, Bernie.
I think earlier this week was a great OTB moment. Taking two superpower teams, putting them together and sharing resources. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich Barker. We talked a couple episodes ago about how lame I am with customer relation managers with CRMs, and
I was listening.
Bernie was listening, and this is why we partner with Lawyers Title and Bernie, and just, she really is listening to the needs that I have in my business. And Kyle and I went with Bernie and Taylor and sat down with another team, Rich Barker team with Keller Williams, another brokerage and everything.
I know, huh?
I do not give a shit what brokerage you're at. I really don't.
We shouldn't. It shouldn't matter.
Shouldn't. Some people seem to think like there's all kinds of weird lines. But anyway, we had a great time.
Yeah.
And Rich was super helpful, just showing us one of the platforms, and excited to kind of dive into it. I think Kyle was actually more excited about it than I was, but we'll see, because somebody's gonna have to run this show, Kyle. He's not saying anything. He's not even going to turn his microphone on for this.
Captain. Yeah. No, that was cool though. I think that's like the cornerstone of our business, being able to get people together that can actually help each other.
Yep.
We can all learn from each other.
So Kyle finally learned I'm not the only one that struggles with a CRM.
No, they've been I think that as any business like grows, twists and turns, you're going to outgrow resources.
Yeah.
And sometimes find that you need multiple resources. So,
speaking of resources,
whatever you focus on.
What, am I supposed to finish that?
Whatever you focus on is what you'll have action in.
True.
So they focused on a CRM and they've built it out to an extent that it's shareable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every time I focus on a CRM, I'm like, this yellow fucking scratch pad is so much easier.
Hey, a lot of money can be made on a legal pad.
Yep.
Yeah. So
every day.
But no, that was cool. It was nice to see you guys all connecting and everything like that.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
We even got to see the green fountain.
Oh, that was so cool. It was like a Wednesday, and it was like a freaking like Mardi Gras going on over there.
Totally. Good old St. Patty's Day.
So
speaking of resources,
I think it'd be really cool to talk about marketing, because I think that you have this great presence in the real estate, and all the digital media that you put out there. But people probably wouldn't know that you loathe it. You hate it. You feel like you don't do it, but you do it well. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think it's such an important part of what we do. And I think that sometimes from the outside things look easy, but the reality is, it's a challenge for you too sometimes.
It's an extreme challenge for me, and I think it's more challenging now than it would have been when I got started in the business.
Yep.
So
I agree.
There's
too many channels.
There's too many channels, and there's too much fear of, if I say the wrong thing now, am I going to offend this part of the audience, or am I going to, say wiener schnitzel and, I don't know what that does, but anyway.
I was worried about wishing people a happy St. Patrick's Day. I didn't want to offend anybody.
Jeez. But I think it's interesting as I watch, because Kyle and Eden in the room, I'll just use them as the goats. It's interesting to see their journey as, they've come into the business under my umbrella and challenging them on the social media side.
Yeah.
And they've just done it.
Yeah.
Kyle's up to if you guys haven't looked at Kyle's
His
vlogs, little
are
bastard.
bananas.
It's like freaking all dialed in, all professional. I can't even get a fucking iPhone video like uploaded without going, well, I wonder what somebody's going to think about this. And am I doing the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Is the lighting right? Are my shoes tied? Did I lock the door? Did I turn off the gas?
It's so true though, because there's this like gap between the fearless and the overthinking.
Right.
Yeah.
I tend to overthink.
For sure. I think that the more experience we have, the more we tend to overthink things. Whereas you see people like Kyle and Eden that they're just doing it.
So here's the best advice I've ever had, and yet not taken enough action with it.
Let's hear it.
You already know it. In fact, I feel like deja vu right now. I swear to God. It's zero fucks given.
Oh, yeah. ZFG. Hashtag
right?
ZFG.
It's the fact that I'm not going to appeal to everybody, or you're not going to appeal to every real estate agent, in the title space. There's going to be a value that somebody sees in you. And I think through social media, especially, they get to know you.
Right.
And they get a little taste of you to see if that's somebody I would want to work with.
Yeah.
I know that I've probably offended some people with, swearing or this, that, and the other, or some of my shenanigans that maybe I'm not the type of person they want to work with. That's okay, because I can't be that person for everybody. And I think that what I see is too many people try to put on this big persona in their social media of who they are.
It's almost like very less authentic and more prepared, like producing a TV show as opposed to just being yourself.
Right.
Right. But like, so you've been doing this for over 20 years, and social has become more important in your day-to-day for your business, and it really blends with personal too. So like, what's the differences with how you're doing things now and like, let's say how you first started? Like, do you feel like I feel like you leverage social media a lot more now.
Well, I think when we first got into the business, let's just kind of do some comparison then and now. Let's take websites. Websites when I started in the business were like the big thing. You paid a lot of money for them. They were super clunky. They weren't very editable, but they were a very box solution. Like,
they were totally
certain things in,
accessible.
and that was it.
Yep,
it's pretty easy. Now you get a website and you're like, I don't know how to drive this thing. Like, where do you turn it on? And it does look like somebody else's, and that's what happens. But I think that the need for a website is very low on the totem pole right now. Personally, I think it's, if somebody is Googling you or trying to find you, I think they're more likely to find you on social media than they are on a website.
Yeah,
the website is like a canned, hey, look at me. Social media is a very like, hey, this is like family, like, everything else.
Yeah, I feel like a website's kind of like a digital business card, right?
Totally.
And then it's kind of like this necessity, like we have to have a website, but that's also created this whole space for turnkey website developing companies, right? And then people turn to social to kind of get a voyeuristic glimpse into who you really are. And I think that the average person can kind of tell when people are pretty authentic and when they're not. Like,
agreed.
You know what I mean? So,
but I think what it goes through there is, and sorry if I cut you off because I hate it when people do that in podcasts. Did I cut you off?
No,
okay,
not at all.
Are you sure?
I'm okay.
Because it drives me insane.
I'm gonna be okay.
When people are like talking over to you, like, anyway. But here's where my opinion is with a website right now is, website's great. Don't spend a shit ton of money on it, especially if you're like a solo
digital
agent,
business card.
You're just starting. Like, just get anything. Like, there's so many free ones and this, that, and the other.
But do it right. Like, don't just like make it live and then dead links, and you know what I mean. Like, do the due diligence to put something simple up.
You can do something simple. They're pretty, like most lead gens and things like that have them that are pretty simple. But I think the websites are more important for those that are massive lead generators through, all the different online platforms. And I think that's where it's important to some. Like, that's where the Boomtowns and Syncs and like all those are super robust.
To do lead gen, yeah.
Right, to lead gen, to get the faucet turned on and stuff coming in through that. I I don't do a lot of it, so it's not real important to me. So that's kind of where I think about websites. It's even kind of the Facebook page. You know, we've got a Facebook page. Eden does a great job maintaining it, putting content on it. You have to spend time engaging with people on that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to get people to like it. And I don't know about you, but I don't spend a lot of time on like business Facebook pages.
Mm-mm.
And even when I get some stuff, I'm not really engaged on it. It's just kind of there.
Right.
But it's something, again, it's another presence piece. It's there, but make sure it's not stagnant. You know, until I had an Eden, it was kind of stagnant. I wasn't posting a lot to it. It wasn't a priority.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the grocery list of digital avenues that we have today compared to even just like 5 years ago, that list is way longer, right? Yeah. So from back in your day when, you know, because you've been in this a minute, but there wasn't a whole lot of avenues for the digital marketing. It was a website, it's a Facebook page. I mean, Instagram really wasn't.
We had MySpace when I started, for crying out loud. There was no Facebook. I was
trying not to say you were ancient, but I have to remember I'm actually older than you, so I don't want to make too much fun of your age. But
yeah, because that's going to come back to haunt you.
Yes, exactly. But really, honestly, think about like how quickly the digital highway has expanded in just a few years. You know, like 5 years ago, right? It was the way you did marketing was like old school.
That's a good and a bad thing, though.
I agree.
Because you have all these squirrels, and I've experienced it. So my advice is that, you know, we talk about 90 days, and we talked about what we were going to do with the podcast. Okay. If I just give you some like direction that we did on the podcast was, hey, we're going to get it up and running. We're going to be consistent with it, and we're going to produce it. We're going to get it out there. People keep asking me, so what are you doing with it? I'm like, we're talking, we're putting content out there, and we're kind of growing audience at this point. There's not a whole lot of asks or anything on the podcast, but the point is to get it up and operating and be consistent, and then add something to it. It goes back to atomic habits. You get one thing done and get it consistent, and then you can add something to it, and that's where you do habit stacking, especially in marketing. So you're like, okay, my website's done. Great. Hey, at least do something. Like, I don't care if you hire somebody that does like not garbage, but like just what
that does
I
garbage.
hate it when like words do not come in to my mind. Drives me crazy.
Is this a squirrel for you today?
Totally. Jeez, why
hire somebody to do content for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I still cannot think
Let me
of
help
the
you
word.
out. Let me help you out. But I don't think that people necessarily need that all the time.
No, but they could set it up like once a month to post a blog or something that just makes the website kind of stay relevant so it doesn't become stagnant.
Right. It
doesn't have to be anything that's super great.
I mean, don't have a blog tab on your website if you're not going to actually post anything to it. Right. Yeah.
Let's just talk about social media. You know, when it comes down to real estate, there's so much you can do with it. I can tell you right now, I don't pay for or generate any Facebook ads. I think it's such a huge bucket. Facebook used to be really good before the whole, you know, movement of you can't target certain audiences, because all of a sudden it became, I don't know, racism or whatever the hell it was. But all of a sudden you can't target wealthy people because anyway,
that's discrimination.
It's discrimination. So now Facebook, the algorithms, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And all the things I'm hearing in the industry is like, yes, you can get a Facebook lead and you have to nurture it like 11 to 13 months. So if you have the staff to do that, great, knock yourself out.
Which you can generate the same lead by just being authentic and actually posting and engaging on a regular basis.
So I think in Facebook itself, I think you have to go down, well, anything in social media. So let me backtrack on this. I had some really great advice from Lizzie Hofer. She's a top female loan officer, and I don't know, might as well be the world. She's a badass, right?
She's legendary.
But Lizzie talked to me this way in order to not get too distracted is we want to connect with human beings on a human level. It can't all be real estate because people get sick of it. So she told me to break things down. So guys, if you're looking on how to kind of work through your social media, find 3 to 5 things that you can legitimately talk about. So Lizzie made me break it down, and it was like, you have teenagers, you have teenage boys, you like cars, and your wife's a contractor, and you guys do this flipping thing together, and then you're an investor, and then you got the real estate thing. She's like, here's the lanes you can talk about. Now start thinking about things that you can post to talk about and engage with those different audiences, because it's showing your personality.
Mm-hmm.
That's because not everybody wants to see you post an under contract picture every day.
Yeah. It's actually kind of fun when you go through Instagram and you look at realtor profile pages, and you just look at that one screen that has like all the posts, and all you see is the solds, under contract, in escrow. You're just like, this is like not a good page at all.
It's
at
not.
All. No, I mean, people want to know people, right? And so I think that, if anything, I feel like this evolution on the social media platform is this openness to showing who you are, right? Whether it's
welcome to TikTok.
Whether it's authentic or otherwise, but at least people are trying to do things to be a little bit more like, give people an opportunity to connect with them, and then you can cultivate clients that way too,
right.
New relationships and whatnot. But that's the other thing I think is interesting, is that a few years ago it was like Facebook, and then now there's so many different, can't even keep up. I mean, I saw some new ones the other day that I'd never even heard of, and I can't even remember the names of them right now. But I mean, think about all the platforms now, and how do you prioritize which platforms are going to be the most beneficial for the way you work, the ones that you like, and the ones that could actually potentially, grow business for you.
So I'll answer that.
Please.
Please.
Please do.
Inquiring minds are wanting to know.
What do you think, Steve? Tell us.
As I've worked with Kyle and Eden on a lot of this different stuff, and being that they're, I don't know, we've had this conversation so many times, they're like between Gen X and millennial, somewhere in there, like borderline.
What is that definition?
Here we are again. Somebody Google that shit.
What are the years?
Bring it up, Eden.
I mean, what is mine? What are you? I think I'm a Gen X.
You are a Gen X. So am I.
You are?
Uh-huh.
Are you sure?
Millennials, like...
Yeah, we're millennials. We're on the tail end of it.
But what's
Gen Z.
the age, or what's the year born?
81 through 94.
Okay.
That's me.
And then Gen X is 95 to... Or what's Gen X? That's before you.
65 through 80.
Yeah. So we're both Gen X's.
Yeah.
Barely. I barely made the cut. You were right in the middle of it. You almost started Gen X.
I think they coined the term when it had already started. We're both Gen X.
Yes.
The people that are marketing after, the people that are after us are millennials.
Uh-huh.
And then Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my kids are Gen Z.
Gen Zers.
Gen Zers. Okay, back to the topic. Sorry. Total squirrels as usual. There's different ways. So when you're looking at Facebook and Instagram, you have people that follow you. And so, you gauge Instagram by your followers. So these are people that your audience is growing based on your engagement and things like that. So that's one way. And I think with Instagram, you're trying to post things that are engaging, trying to get people to comment or not necessarily like, but you want the post to get engaging. So you're asking questions, or you're telling a story or something of that nature, giving advice. Facebook's kind of the same way. But these are specific people that are following you. They have to go there to find you. Okay. Now, when you look at some other things, how do you grow those audiences?
Yeah. I will say this. I think Facebook is people you know, and I think Instagram can be a lot of people you don't know.
Correct.
Yeah.
Agreed. Then you go to TikTok and like Instagram Reels. Those are the most popular thing. I tried to learn how to do one the other day, and Kyle still has to teach me. It's so annoying. It's very similar to TikTok. I think TikTok is hysterical.
My brother sent me a TikTok video the other day, and I'm like, I don't know what's funnier, this video or the fact that my brother has TikTok.
Oh, you can watch. You can lose hours of your life on TikTok. But it's a great way to inform people in kind of a funny way or serious way. There's some guys that do it really well, but it's a way where that will come up randomly in somebody's feed. Then that gives them the option to go and follow you somewhere else. So a TikTok or Reels is giving them a kind of opening to your soul to like, oh, this guy's really good, or that information is really good.
That's deep.
I'm gonna go over here and follow them on Instagram because I want to see more of them. That's where Reels kind of comes into place. Same thing with TikTok. TikTok.
So can we do a reel today, like on our Thinking OTB?
Yeah, we'll do a reel. Kyle, just take some video so we can figure out.
So let's get real.
Yeah. And then you also, I thought really interesting. One of the guys in my mastermind, Scott Aaron, he does a lot of LinkedIn training. LinkedIn's made a huge comeback.
I agree with that.
And one of the things they talk about on LinkedIn is that your audience, because the audience in LinkedIn is like 75,000 plus a year income earners. And so is your audience more there, and it posts just like everything else.
Yeah.
You also have a lot more ability to connect with people directly through LinkedIn. I should use it more. Again, it's just another, like, you can spend all day freaking in between platforms.
Yeah. Well, so if you were to talk about like your like marketing strategy, yours is very organic. It's not like you put down like huge like brainstorming and marketing plan, right? I mean, for you, it's just been very organic.
It's been very organic.
And social has been a big help because it lets you be organic.
It also lets me be very real.
Right.
This is what I'm doing. So, you know, I think the one thing that I've really enjoyed is I'm a little slow on my posts because some days I kind of have to be in the moment to post. I don't want to just post random stuff just for the fun of it. I want it to be somewhat meaningful at the end of the day. And my goal is always like, I hope this impacts one person. And what I've really enjoyed is posting stories.
I was to say, you're going to talk about stories for sure. Okay.
You know, depending on how your accounts are set up, but Instagram can be linked to Facebook, so you don't have to do stories on both. But I really enjoy the stories because it takes me, you know, a couple of minutes to put the day's story together, and it gives somebody some really good insight to where what you're doing, maybe, you know, like for me, it's always about the different houses that I'm looking at, the different problems I'm solving. The other night on my stories, I was doing drag races through my backyard with my Can-Am because it's all torn up. Nice. So just showing like random parts of your life, or like when Wendy didn't know I had her on video the other day, and one of the kids is like, burn the gnomes. She has this gnome fetish, so there's like these Easter gnomes all over things. And she turns around, she's like, go fucking burn your own gnomes down. She's like, oh, am I on video? I'm like, good mom. Pretty typical in our household. But you get to show your personality, because what most people don't know is there's probably like 1 to 2 to 5% of people that actually see your post on Facebook.
Right. I think if you really need to do stories in order for your post to be seen.
Correct.
Yeah.
Stories, I can go and see what somebody's really doing really quick in stories.
So what do you recommend to a realtor right now? Like, how do you, because I think a lot of people are on social, but like, how does somebody that works in real estate get a little bit more thoughtful?
I think everything's engaging through story or experience. And here's what I mean by that. I think putting a post on Facebook or Instagram that I sold a house for $25,000 over list or overpraised value doesn't hold a lot of value. Who are you talking to? Does the consumer really understand what that means? Right? So you have to understand who your audience is. So a lot of times on Instagram, that's really where my audience is more real estate agents and, you know, people that truly know me and are wanting to be influenced by what I'm doing in real estate. Facebook, I probably put a lot more family stuff and a lot more goofy stuff when it comes down to it.
So you do it separate? You don't like?
I do a little bit separate. I mean, eventually you see both of them. I would say my Instagram, Eden, what would you say my Instagram is probably more on the professional side with what I'm posting in stories and trying to give wisdom through story in my posts in Instagram. That's really what I'm utilizing that for. Now, eventually, those same posts, Eden will take and repost in Facebook. They don't get done on the same days. But my Facebook will add some different stuff into it with family birthdays and those types of things. But I don't take those. Those don't typically get posted in Instagram. Like you said, Facebook's typically people that know me. So it's like, hey, your relatives are seeing you're having a birthday party and those types of things. You go to Instagram, that's really where I would say my professional stuff is being done. Not so professional on Facebook. I mean, you might see me like having chocolate cake wars in the kitchen and throwing food at things and probably shooting my kids with paintball guns and any other random things that I should probably get the cops called on me for.
That's funny.
For child endangerment.
Oh, geez. Right. Okay, then.
So
what about some of these other platforms? Clubhouse, TikTok, LinkedIn, you say you don't use.
I'm on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's a great place. I think that,
I played around with it a little bit, and it's actually interesting the engagement for different things.
Yeah.
Because it's to your point, like they're business people, but they're all homeowners too.
Correct.
or potential homeowners.
So I think it's finding, again, a path. What do you want to focus on right now?
Mm-hmm. What are your goals?
Do I want to post on Facebook on Monday and Instagram on Friday?
Yeah.
Start looking at some of that. And who's your audience? Like, who are you trying to speak to?
Well, and I think that's the other thing too, is getting very specific about what you're trying to achieve with the social highway. Like, are you trying to gain an audience? Are you trying to build business? Are you trying to get people to know you better? Are you know what I mean? Like being very, focused on what you're trying to accomplish. Or are you just having fun?
The number one thing you need to know is who are you speaking to and who is your audience?
Yeah.
So back to the post about the overappraised value. I know what that means. You know what that means. Does the person that wants to buy or sell a house, do they understand what that means?
No, probably not.
So if this house,
Unless
so let me rephrase what that post could be for that agent. Congratulations to my sellers, because they did these things, their house sold for $25,000 more than appraised value. But did you know we had 5 offers and it took us multiple days to get through? It's really hard sometimes to make a choice when you have multiple offers. Glad they listened to the advice.
Yeah.
And this is how they won.
Make it about them.
Now you have to
journey.
make it. So if you're looking to kind of create that audience and figure out where to start, I highly recommend to start with Donald Miller's Building a Story brand. He talks a lot about building story, telling story. So you got to go through, and you're not the hero.
Right.
Right? I'm not, I might be the buyer of the house, or I might be the agent.
It's not about the agent.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about the guidance. We're there to guide. So in social media, you're trying to show your guidance through your experience that creates the consumer win.
Right. By highlighting somebody else's story.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I also think that you do need to be consciously aware of the things that you're posting, especially of consumers, making sure they're okay with the share.
Yeah. True.
Okay.
Seeking permission.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
So when I look at my stuff, right, we'll post properties for sale, those types of things on Facebook. It's kind of inside my audience. When I'm looking at my audience in Instagram, I'm looking to influence more real estate agents as, I start building out the next mentor program that I'm working on building net worth inside the industry and kind of shifting your business a little bit. So that's really where I'm engaged more there, is trying to show the different things, the choices, the things that I'm doing through experience in order to influence and impact that audience.
Yeah. So like a traditional realtor could leverage Instagram and then kind of slightly tweak it for Facebook, because Facebook's going to be people that they know.
Correct.
And Instagram could be, instead of it being about mentoring or influencing other realtors for them, it might be for them to gain an audience of people who are curious about buying or selling, or and adding like a tone to it that gets them to engage.
Yeah. So if you're not really focused, you could be all over the place, which means the messaging gets confusing to people. I really struggled with that early on because, again, I'm over here telling one story. It's like explain to the agent how I bought a house, how it's a good investment, where the opportunity came from, and all these things. That's really confusing on the consumer side. The only thing the consumer needs to know about this is how I solved the problem for the seller because there was 100 rats in the house, right? That's it. Like, hey, what do I do if I have 100 rats in my house? Who will buy my house? I will, right? So that's where you go. Over here, it's how do I solve the problem? Like, well, what do you do when you buy a house with 100 rats?
Yeah.
Well, you don't poison them because you don't want dead rats anywhere. You want to trap them. So you see what I mean? Like, there's different audiences you're talking to, so you need to be understand that. But both audiences, you're trying to show your personality through your experience and what you're doing. And I think TikTok and Reels is through Instagram. Both of those are simple video platforms that you can add some teaching to or engagement to, but they randomly come up in people's feeds. So it's like if you got on TikTok, think of it this way. It's like the Wheel of Fortune, wheel spinning, and it's and it stops. And whatever comes up is like on your feed. You're like, oh, new person. I actually like what that person did. And then you go and follow or like, or you seek them out. And that's where TikTok and Reels works really well because there's no like algorithm until you start liking things.
Oh, interesting.
And then more of that comes up. So if I like a bunch of, puppies, all of a sudden everything everybody's doing with puppies starts showing up in my feed.
That would be my favorite.
So if you, start liking real estate investor posts, now it's saying, hey, this is one of your interests. It's going to feed more of these people in. And like I said, if you're one of these people looking for more audience, that's all of a sudden going to feed in to somebody else's feed. And then they have the option to follow you, like you, or reach out to you.
Very cool. Well, you've done a good job.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
What else in the marketing side? Well, what are you seeing from your side when you meet with agents? What are their biggest hurdles?
Gosh. I would say it's kind of all over the map, right? Sometimes from a marketing perspective, the desire for marketing is usually a result of something that's happened in their business as opposed to a bigger plan for the consistency. So in other words, oh my God, we just sold this house for XYZ and it was over this and all the things so now they want to do marketing, right? And as opposed to just having a marketing strategy in general for their business.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we need to find something right there. I think there's a big difference in, marketing and branding, and I think there's a strategy for each. So, let's just talk about...
Well, brand supports the marketing.
Again,
marketing is a reflection of a brand.
Right, but they all go, so you first have to start with what's your audience.
Right.
Like that, when you talk about like luxury agents, their brand and their marketing and all that stuff is coinciding with who their audience is. So you really need to start by knowing who you're talking to.
Yep.
As you're starting to create the brand and the brand awareness and those types of things.
And I'll take it one step further. Not only who are you talking to, but who are you? That you
that's a loaded question.
You have to know yourself before you can actually connect with an audience, right? So to me, your brand and the marketing is really a reflection of who you are in that brand. So there's a lot of roads to go down in terms of, people's brand and their marketing.
I love what you said about knowing who you are.
Yeah.
Because you said I've done a good job, okay? But I think that part of that had to do with knowing who I am and how I'm going to present myself to the consumer and the industry, which is, I know that my dad's turning over in his grave right now because I don't wear a tie and I don't wear slacks because that's how I was taught the business.
Yeah. I'm sure he's okay with it.
I'm sure. But eventually you do have to find and you have to own the brand and who you are and be okay with that. Otherwise, you will do and experience what I experienced, where you go through these shifts of, oh, well, maybe I should go back to dressing in
Right.
nice clothes or ties and shirts. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to emulate somebody else that you saw or some sort of success rather than creating your own success.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's some really simple exercises that you can do on your own to kind of learn about yourself in a brand. So you could have some thinking time and just literally spend an hour perusing magazines, if people still have those, or the internet, or watching TV, and taking note of the ads that you like, the logos that you like, and why. And then ask yourself, why do I like it? Like, because usually we're attracted to it from an emotional standpoint or from a status standpoint or something like that. And those are like the first steps to really discovering who you are in a brand.
I think it's, one more point to that would be why did you connect with that?
Exactly. The emotional piece is like
Right.
once you sit down and kind of go, okay, I'm going to take inventory of all the brands that I gravitate towards, right? And then like, why? Like, why? Like, why do I like Chanel? Right? Like, why do I like, why do I like a certain beer or, things like that. But it's a very thoughtful process. It's not just about taking in a whole bunch of information. It's about really thinking about why you like a brand, why you like a logo, why are you loyal to Converse, why are like all these things. And then when you start to extract like the describers of that, like why you're emotionally connected to it, you start to learn about yourself. And so then you can create the persona that you want to have other people recognize you for, right? So it could be colors, it could be the style, it could be, logos, it can be even just like the emotional connection that you have to it could also be how you describe your company.
Correct. And I think that there's a lot of great companies out there that can help you with, if you have the idea or the diving board, somebody can kind of help you hone
Oh yeah,
colors and branding and those types of
that's
things.
my favorite. I
And
love that.
I remember when we started going down the road, and it was something that I immediately fell in love with and just ran with it. I didn't go seek out a branding consultant. I'm like, you know what? That's where we're going to go. The only thing that shifted a little bit was some of the wording because of the messaging. So when Garrett, a media guy that I hired years ago, he's around, very talented, and he came to me, he's watching all the stuff we're doing. He's like, dude, your company's like a handcrafted beer. You watch the commercials and they're like, it reminds me of a Sam Adams commercial, right? It's, these certain hops and they're heated to this and they're doing this and we do it locally. And this is, and it brings that sense of the American pride, like when you watch those commercials. And so he comes to me, he's like, check this out. And he's like, I think your company needs a beer logo because that's what's behind it, because the real estate solutions that you provide are handcrafted. They're made a certain way. They tasted a certain way. And so that's where we came up with the current logo. It went from handcrafted real estate because that got a little confusing to the consumer. Like, how do you handcraft real estate? Like, what does that look like? And that's where we kind of changed it to the real estate strategies. And keeping the rest of the logo is that, we do handcraft real estate strategies.
Yeah.
And that's where, we went into the branding of the t-shirts and we started creating gear that people actually like to wear that we could give away, and it was comfortable. And plus it's a huge tax write-off for me.
Yeah, you have like your clothes every single day ready to go, and it's a tax write-off.
Yeah. I just need Converse to make me some custom shoes.
You just can't wear a Valentine t-shirt next time you promote a property.
Oh, yeah. Freaking agents. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you got to bring that up? That just makes me angry.
Sorry, I just think it's one of the only times I've seen you wear a regular shirt.
I know, it was terrible. Because I think you said, were you wearing a blouse in that video?
A top.
A top.
This is cute.
Whatever.
Top.
So, the branding and marketing, and then it's getting clear on how you're going to communicate and what the mediums you're going to use to communicate with.
For sure. And then set up milestones, right? Because I think a lot of people get stuck in creating that brand or their identity, and maybe like lessen it by creating some milestones. Like, okay, this week I'm going to find the brands and things that I like. Next week I'm going to start to figure out what are the words that describe those brands and which ones to identify with, right? Like, and then bring it full circle, set up milestones, and you don't have to spend a year trying to figure out what your logo is going to be, right? You can really get connected to it by just taking some of these like specific steps.
I think the things that I really learned from the marketing journey from being in the business so long is you start off whether you have a little bit of money. I mean, Fiverr, Indeed, all these different companies have, what's the other one we use, Kyle?
Those are the ones.
Is it, there was one more that we did the video editing on. I forget what it is. I always forget what it is. Upwork. These are all places where you can go and get people to create things.
Yeah.
Very
affordable.
Very affordable. So try to find somebody that can help you craft your vision of what it's supposed to look like, and then ask about it. Get opinions from a consumer. Go to your friends and say, hey, would you take, or your current customers and say, hey, I'd really like your opinion as how do you connect to this?
Yeah.
Does this represent me well?
Does it make sense?
Does it make sense, or am I confusing you? Don't be afraid to ask questions.
For sure.
I wished I would have asked more questions in the
Market
beginning.
research.
Market research, right.
Survey.
So that I was clear on what I was doing.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to shift along the way.
For sure.
It's not going to change who you are.
No.
It's not going to change what you provide.
It's evolution.
It is evolution.
Yeah.
And be okay with evolving into who you are, because it is going to change.
It will, for sure.
Guaranteed.
I'm actually working with a team right now that's in the middle of what we would call a rebranding.
Yep.
But it's not really a rebranding. It's just that they've evolved. So they're going to, we're doing some tone tweaks, some language tweaks. We're like kind of flattening their logo. We're modernizing things. But don't be afraid of that.
Yeah.
Put your arms around it.
I think the other thing, too, that's really big right now, if you can get yourself behind a camera and do, is more video, and especially YouTube channels. I feel like I'm so far behind on stuff. That's why I've got Kyle and Eden pushing me in so many different directions on that front. Is that it's going to be important, because that's where the consumers are feeding from stuff.
Totally.
If you look at the next generation of consumer, having teenagers that are 16 and 18, they constantly are watching TikTok and YouTube. They are not Facebookers. They are not Instagrammers. So you've got to look at the platforms of what's creating the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I looked at, like with the kids, the branding piece is creating cool gear. The kids are constantly, they'll go through a whole box of 30 shirts and hats when I bring them home to give to all their friends. Same thing with the hoodies. The hoodies are the most coveted thing in our household. We can't keep them in stock. But the kids love to wear them. But I'm also creating the next generation of clients by branding them early on and knowing where that's going to go. Because those kids, I swear to God, that's all they wear. I'm like, it's kind of cool that we were able to create something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you have an awesome logo. You have great branding. Yeah. Done a good job.
And I think it's a way to, I tried not to connect myself so much to oh, look at our logo and it's got a house on it. Nobody's going to wear that.
Right.
Seriously. That was what I thought. When
and it's not to say that a house would be bad to have in your logo, but I just think that if you're creating a brand and you're really getting into who you are,
right?
Is it really a house?
Right.
Right. If you find a great way to create a logo that includes some sort of house in it and you work in real estate, I think that's cool. As long as it's true to who you really are and you're actually doing a deep dive into thinking about what's our brand going to be? What do we represent? How do we want to be seen?
Yep.
And then that you truly identify with it, right?
So I think that the takeaways from this is, one, figure out who your audience is. Are you buyers, sellers, investors? Who's your audience? Because your marketing and your branding is going to be how you talk to that audience. And then if you're struggling with social or, trying to figure out, that again goes back to audience. Who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to first-time home buyers? Are you speaking to sellers? And, again, I've really struggled with that. In fact, Kyle and I were out shooting videos the other day, and I started to, talk to one audience. I'm like, that's not the audience I'm speaking to, so why am I doing this video? You got to go. And funny thing is every story has multiple sides to it. You can
Right.
talk to whatever audience that appeals to.
Yep.
So you got to make sure that as you're doing it, your messaging gets really clear. That was another thing that Lizzie was really big with me. She's like, hey, just talk to the investment side of the business, because that's where you're passionate and that's where you're really good at. You can't talk to everybody.
Right. Well, in every iteration you can't now, for sure. You can definitely talk to multiple audiences, but keep your messages clear.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just think that that's important. And if you're, trying to figure out what to post and those types of things, just start out slow. What does the consumer need right now? And how do you talk to them on their level? Tammy's always really good at telling me, like, hey, stop talking at college level and start bringing it down to third grade. Like, that person probably doesn't understand what you're talking about, so make sure that you're dumbing it down and stop assuming that everybody knows what EM, COE, DOD all means when you're talking about real estate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you really think about it too, like if you can't explain what it is that you're trying to do in like 30 seconds and have people understand it, less than 30 seconds actually, right? I mean, people need to understand what you're talking about.
Right.
So even though we know all of our jargon and our real estate initials and whatnot, like I love when people talk about the list price. I'm like, what? It's not really the list price, it's the ask.
Yeah.
And people understand what that means, like the asking price, right?
But hey, just another reminder, texting OTB to 602-560-7027. One of these days, I'm going to get Bernie to do this commercial piece of it. We'll get a sticky note for you.
Okay. Whatever you say, boss.
Wow, why do I get to be the boss? And I want to thank Bernie for, the time committed to doing the podcast with me and hanging out every Friday.
Aww.
And all that you do in our business at Valentine Group from the title side, from Lawyers Title. You guys have been an amazing partner over the years. So, guys, if you're looking for change in title, you're starting the business, I really appreciate what Bernie and Lawyers Title has done for our business. So highly recommend to finding Bernie and tracking her down. And
I'm pretty easy to track down.
You are. Absolutely. Where can they find you on Instagram again?
Burns Picks.
Burns Picks, not B-U-R. Is it B-U-R?
BERNZPIX.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I like to post pictures.
Well, thanks for joining us again. I hope you enjoyed that about the marketing. And if you're not following me on Instagram, please do, Steve D. Valentine. And I'd love to connect with you in that space. Until next time, see ya.
Yeah, thanks for listening.